All right, I'm here. What's up? David Dole for the Rational National. Apologies if you joined the other stream. There was some weird stuff with the camera, so I had to reset. So hopefully people are going to scurry back in now. So big news. Elizabeth Warren is going to drop out of the race. Now, what she's going to do after dropping out remains to be seen. We don't know if she's going to back Sanders. We don't know if she's going to back Biden. We don't know if she'll just stay out of it and wait till the convention, which is, I think, potentially the most likely scenario is that she's not going to back either candidate. And the reasons are, let me go into what I speculate may happen before I get into Warren's race and what she did wrong, basically. So Elizabeth Warren in 2016 was encouraged to run against Hillary Clinton, encouraged by Bernie Sanders, including just a movement that was trying to get her to run against Hillary Clinton in 2016. She refused to. She also refused to back Bernie Sanders, even though they aligned on policy over her aligning with Hillary Clinton. And then in this race, she backed Medicare for All until she then backed that plan up to a public option. And then later on, she took on a super PAC after basically saying that nobody should be taking super PACs. So because of these reasons, because Elizabeth Warren really, when faced with these challenges, faced with these scenarios, she has not been willing to publicly take on the Democratic establishment. This is why I think she'll drop out and not endorse either candidate. I haven't seen any real fight from her when it comes to publicly fighting the Democratic Party leadership. So is she really going to back Bernie now when he's down a little bit in delegates, can still come back, but down a little bit in delegates? Is she really going to back Bernie over the unified corporate wing of the party when she hasn't shown fight before to do that? I don't think so. But I would love to be proven wrong. So, I mean, if she does come out and back Bernie, it will have an impact for sure. And it'll give the Sanders campaign a boost that they need, especially with the suburbs, the wealthy white liberals that Warren has largely been appealing to. I'm not saying that to attack Warren. I'm saying that that's what the data shows us. Elizabeth Warren, her support base are wealthy white liberals in suburbs. She has a very white liberal support. That is her support. And it's support that Bernie Sanders does not have. So Elizabeth Warren backing him, I think, would absolutely help Bernie Sanders. And also, I think she would be able to really help make the argument against Joe Biden and the bankruptcy bill, which she essentially launched her political campaign or her political involvement on. Like, Elizabeth Warren is perfectly would be such a great surrogate because she's perfectly aligned with Sanders when it comes to many of the issues that he has fought for and fought against Joe Biden on. But when it comes to how she has treated her campaign and, you know, her lack of fight, I just don't really see it. But again, I would love to be proven wrong here. We'll just have to see. I'm also going to take some super chats, and I'll take chats from people that have different perspectives or the same perspective. I want to see what people think in the chat about this. Actually, first, I should probably have shown you this. So this is the New York Times headline that broke this news. Elizabeth Warren, once a frontrunner, will drop out of the presidential race. Ms. Warren, a senator and former law professor, staked her campaign on fighting corruption and changing the rules of the economy. So that is where the official word came out. Again, she has not said who she's endorsing. I don't even think she's officially dropped out herself yet, but this is clearly going to happen, or the New York Times wouldn't be reporting this. So let's look at her campaign now, just briefly. Elizabeth Warren, I think, could have become the nominee if she had actually stuck to a progressive platform, actually became a real champion for all of these issues, stuck to her support, her strong support of Medicare for all. If she was on these issues the way that Sanders has been on them, and has stuck to, and she was consistent in sticking to them the entire campaign, didn't waver, didn't fall backwards when she was pushed on how to pay for Medicare for all. If she stood her ground and fought for these issues, fought for a better world, she would be in a much better place right now, and she could honestly be leading. And it could have become, it may have become a fight between her and Sanders. But she didn't show that commitment to the issues. She backed off Medicare for all. And once she did that, once she backed off Medicare for all and launched this new plan with first a public option, and then 3 years later she'll fight for Medicare for all when she'd be campaigning for re-election. Just a completely ridiculous plan. Like, strategically, it would be a completely ridiculous plan to have two separate healthcare fights and think that you're actually going to win both. No, you have one healthcare fight that you focus on. But she had a plan that was a public option. Then 3 years later, try and pass Medicare for all. Once she launched that, her support dropped immediately. Much in the same way, Kamala Harris, her support dropped when she wavered on Medicare for all. Medicare, like, healthcare is a huge issue, and you're seeing it now in all the exit polling. I believe every single state that has voted so far, every single state, Medicare for all has won in exit polling. People choose Medicare for all over the current system. Like, what does this tell you? This tells me that people want Medicare for all. And if you're going to be a candidate that's not going to fight for that, then they're going to go to Bernie Sanders. Or in some cases, I was seeing tweets out there that there are some North Carolina voters that voted for Joe Biden that mistakenly thought he backed Medicare for all. Medicare for all is incredibly popular, especially among Democrats. It's popular nationwide, regardless of ideology or regardless of party for voters. But for Democrats, it's incredibly popular. To not run on that is stupid. To back off that and show you're weak on that issue was stupid. And clearly it was dumb because she lost support immediately when she backed off Medicare for all. Now, I mean, that really is what happened to her campaign. She backed off the issues and she lost support. And then she began to smear Sanders and his campaign in an attempt to gain support, which just put her even further down in the hole. So her strategy didn't work. Now, with that said, that doesn't mean, like, say you hold some anger or resentment or whatever towards Elizabeth Warren. You can't apply that to her supporters. Her supporters are just voters that mainly, when looking at polling, mainly care about the issues because their second choice is Bernie Sanders. So it's important to be open and embracing of any of her supporters that are now backing Bernie Sanders. Don't put any anger, or animosity, or resentment that you have towards Elizabeth Warren as a candidate. Don't apply that to anybody else because that's on Elizabeth Warren and what she did and said. And also, if she decides to back Sanders, you got to welcome it. I mean, it's huge. If you actually care about these issues, if you actually care about winning, stop at the BS online. Stop at the fighting. Stop at the snake emojis. If she actually backs Sanders and is putting her political career on the line by backing the insurgent candidate, by backing the people movement over the corporate wing of the party, understand that takes guts politically for her to do that, especially when she has not been doing that in the past. So if she actually takes that risk, which I hope she does, and look, I say it's a risk, but honestly, I think it would be a huge boon to her. She has lost a lot of progressive support by running the campaign that she has run so far, and she can get a lot of that back if she now backs Sanders and helps him win this race. Because again, look at the delegates. It is incredibly close right now. The race is essentially tied. Bernie Sanders can absolutely win this. I'd say right now there's a 50-50 shot between Biden and Bernie Sanders. And Elizabeth Warren, what she does will absolutely have an immediate impact on the race. Now I keep refreshing Twitter in front of me just in case some more news comes out. I want to share before I get to some super chats as I'm hearing them come in. I saw this tweeted out by Hassan, and I think it's a good point here. First, I'll read what he quoted. So this is Charlotte Alter of Time Magazine. So Charlotte says, when I spoke with Warren, I was struck by how she doesn't talk about this campaign as if it's about her. It's all about the ideas. I asked her how she would feel if Sanders or Buttigieg won the nomination and adopted her plans, and this is what she said. Are you kidding? Fabulous, she says. I think the question you're asking me is, if the things you want to get done actually get done, will your heart be broken? And the answer is no. I'll lead the parade. Now, you can look at this two different ways. You can look at this and think, oh, okay, then it means that she'll likely back Sanders because she actually cares about the issues. But you can look at it another way, as Hassan tweets out here. I've been thinking about this Warren quote for the past 2 days, and it's so bad because you could use that as a justification for endorsing Biden or Bernie, which is true. Because if you think about it, if Warren thinks that she has that, like if Warren assumes that Biden's going to win this nomination, then she'll think that she has more power over a potential Biden administration if she endorsed him now, as opposed to backing Bernie Sanders and hoping that he wins. So this is the exact reason why, even if Warren can really self-justify whatever she chooses to do. Like if she backs Biden, it'll be similar to why she backed Hillary. She thinks, well, this person's going to win anyways, so I might as well back the candidate that I think is going to win. And then and even if I don't agree with them on many of the issues, I'll at least be, a voice in their ear and have some influence over the administration. If she takes that same approach this time and backs Biden, I mean, it's just making the same mistake twice. Biden very likely could lose against Trump. And then what? Then she has no progressive support because she backed the wrong candidate. And she has no power again because Biden lost. Like this is the time now to potentially right her wrong from last time. But will she do it? I don't know. So let me check these super chats now. Get some other perspectives. Whether you agree with me or not, I don't mind seeing what other people think. All right. All right. The first one is from Balthasar. Quote, her warranty has long since expired. Susan Beaver says, Congresswoman Lee for VP. Republicans voted Biden. Barbara Lee's in my top 3 for vice president, for sure. Pump Action Musket says Sanders is 65 delegates short of Biden. Guess who has 65 delegates right now? I hadn't thought of that. I guess Warren does. I didn't know how many she has. Yeah, but then you got to look at Bloomberg's delegates. He's got some too. But ultimately, like this race has kind of hit a reset button, and the next, the rest of the states, which is like 2/3 of the country still left to vote, are really going to mean everything. LT, the very generous super chat, says she is going to go the vanilla route and state, quote, I will back the will of the people. I will endorse who you endorse. She'll say, get out and vote, as I will support the Democratic candidate against Trump. Yeah. That's what I think. I don't think she'll endorse anybody. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. But I don't think she'll endorse anybody, but we'll see. The Big Red Bear says Bernie needs Warren's support. Without that, it's over. We'll find out who Elizabeth Warren is this week. There will be a price for the endorsement. Also keep in mind, though, like Warren simply dropping out already could help Bernie Sanders quite a bit. So if Warren drops out and as long as she doesn't endorse Biden, a lot of her support may still go to Bernie Sanders. But if she drops out and backs Sanders, then it'll give him a huge boost. And if she drops out and backs Biden, the race is likely over. Just keeping it real there. Zant says, ignore these Alex and Tesla guys in the chat, folks. I don't even. I probably need more mods, but yeah, just ignore this man. Croy Renee says, now that it's Biden versus Bernie, if Bernie takes the gloves off and embarrasses Joe in the next debate, it's smooth sailing. Biden can't hide now. Yeah. The next debate, unfortunately, is so far away. Like when we had the debate, I guess it was last week, it felt like there were too many debates. It's like, all right, we just had a debate the week before, another debate now. This is too much. We've had the same arguments on stage now too many times. But now that the race is completely reshaped, it feels like there aren't enough debates because it's going to be Bernie versus Biden on stage. Like, just give me 3 hours of Bernie and Biden on stage. It'll become crystal clear who is capable of not even just defeating Trump, but also who's capable of actually taking on the job and who isn't. Biden falls apart with 30 seconds, when he has 30 seconds to speak. Imagine when he has 2 minutes or 5 minutes. Like, it's just going to... it's going to be obvious, and more people are going to be paying attention to these debates as we get deeper into the race. But unfortunately, I think there's only 2 debates left. I haven't double checked that, but I think there's 2 debates left, which I wish there were more. But let's be honest, if Bernie was leading and it was a big field, then I'd be happy if there were no debates because it would be him coasting at that point. So, it's my own bias here that I want to see more debates, but I think it's important people see the clear difference between these 2 candidates. Ricky Williams says, my wife is a doctor and we support Bernie and Medicare for all. Awesome. Yeah, look, doctors, I think they have firsthand experience of how broken the current system is. I don't exactly know how the process works for doctors, but I imagine you got to deal with insurance companies, and that's going to be an issue, especially when you want to see your patients get well, and your patient doesn't have health care, doesn't have insurance, or can't afford it, or can't afford the out-of-pocket expenses, and that's going to have an impact mentally on doctors in the field. So under a Medicare for all system, everybody's covered, regardless of your situation when it comes to wealth. Shisa Lion Dog says Warren should agree to be Bernie's Treasury Secretary the way Hillary became Obama's Secretary of State. Well, yeah, I think as somebody mentioned earlier, there definitely would be some kind of deal like that. Like if I'm going to keep refreshing Twitter just in case anything happens. But yeah, like if Warren does back Sanders, she's definitely going to be promised something. If not VP, though, again, I wouldn't, she isn't my first choice for vice president. Definitely not. But if it's between him losing or winning the election, he may have to capitulate that far to her to get her on board. Where was I here? Kendall Links says, and generous super chat says Warren will want to make an endorsement until after March 10th or March 17th primaries, with Biden remaining in the lead, and then will endorse Biden so as to appear to be a unifier. That's a potential as well. She may hold her endorsement until the next bunch of states vote, but at that point, she really risks losing any and all support she had, especially considering where she's come from and what she has fought for and what she has fought Joe Biden on. And to come in now and, back a candidate. Like, imagine she backs Biden. Biden, who was just endorsed by Michael Bloomberg. Michael Bloomberg, who Warren just talked, in recent debates, talking about how much of a threat Bloomberg is. At that point, it would all be empty words from Warren. So I really hope she, not even just for Sanders and these policies and this movement, but for her own career, for her own political career, if she wants to save it, she has to back the candidates actually and back the movement that is actually fighting for people. Because you can't be a unifier by pretending to care about these issues and backing Biden. It's not. It doesn't really work. Okay, let me read this. There's an official statement from the PCCC, which I have been, I gotta say, a little critical of in this race. They backed Elizabeth Warren, which is fine, but it got to the point where one of their co-founders, Adam Green, was just making up things online and talking about how Warren still has a path to the nomination when she didn't, and now it's clear she doesn't. So they backed the wrong candidate, but I'm curious to see what they say here. If I can read this, we are so proud of how Elizabeth Warren changed the substance of the 2020 election, inspired millions of Americans, and brought so many new people into the progressive movement. We are confident that as she figures out her next steps, she will put the thought, care, strategy, and effectiveness into that decision-making that one would expect of the Elizabeth Warren we know and love. We 100% know that the ripple effects of Elizabeth Warren's Big Ideas campaign for president will be felt for months, years, and decades. And someday, a little girl who pinky swore to Elizabeth that she would run for office will be sworn into Congress as president. It's from Stephanie Taylor and Adam Green, PCCC co-founders. All right, well, that's a pretty, it's a statement that doesn't really say anything, but I think it's all they can say at this point as they're waiting to see what's going to happen. All right, let me take some more super chats here. I keep checking back on Twitter just to see if any news comes out. Though it's I feel like at this point, I mean, she may make an announcement in a bit. We don't know. Or she may wait. Like, Sanders is holding rallies, I imagine, over the next few days. Would be a good time to show up at one of them if she were to back him. Where was I here? Junie McGrath says, I feel like this is too little too late. Also, I feel like her more white suburban liberal supporters will go to Biden, but who knows? Love your work. I think it'll be mixed. So if I can pull up, of course I saved the link and forgot it. Let me see if I could find this. Oh, it's in front of me. So this data here. So this is Morning Consult. Their most recent info on who Warren supporters turn their choices to. So this is how they imagine it may play out based on second choices. So 43% of Warren supporters said Sanders was their second choice, compared with 36% who said Biden. That would amount to a 5 percentage point increase for Sanders' first choice support if her supporters move where they are inclined to go, and a 4-point boost for Biden, clearing the field of their last major challenger. Now, what I will say, this analysis doesn't really take in take into account the impact on media, the impact on the narrative that goes above and beyond simple data points. So you can absolutely, Sanders can absolutely pick up more support from Warren than just these 5 points here and, you know, Biden getting 4 points here. Like it's not that cut and dry. It isn't that simple, because it all depends on what the media narrative turns into. If Warren backs him, and if she starts really making the case against Joe Biden. So I think it'll actually help Bernie Sanders a lot more than this, because then at this point, you know, the whole move by the centrist or the corporate wing of the Democratic Party, all backing Joe Biden at once, they shot their shot. That's it. They made their move. Now, for the next 2 months, it's essentially, what does Joe Biden have? Like, short of an Obama endorsement, Biden doesn't have any moves left. So Bernie Sanders could come out with a Warren endorsement, then take on the media narrative, or essentially take over the media narrative, and then in turn re-energize his campaign and bring the momentum back to his campaign. So that can absolutely, the whole thing can turn on its head. The way it flipped in 3 days for Joe Biden, it can happen with Bernie Sanders. And then Biden would have to respond or hope that his name recognition and where he is so far in the race is going to help propel him to the finish line. But I wouldn't be so sure of that. There are still 2/3 of states left to vote. And a lot of that support, a lot of those votes could go to Bernie over Biden, leading him to a plurality of delegates at the convention, at which point we got to see if the party respects the will of the people. And look, if Biden comes out with more votes by the convention than Sanders does, then I think Biden should be the nominee. I think the person that has the most votes, regardless of if it's Biden or Bernie, they should be the nominee. You can't, regardless of who it is, you can't overtake the will of the people. So I'm fair when it comes to that. Even though I don't want to see Biden as the nominee and I think he's a huge risk against Trump, you have to respect the will of the people, or else what are rules for? Like, what's democracy about if you just take over, if you have the elites decide for you? What was I going to show? I think that was it. Let me go back to Super Chats. Phil Smart says, if Liz endorses Byrne, can we make that Dumb and Dumber motorcycle scene a meme with their faces? Totally redeem yourself, Liz. Haha. Funny. Pauline Valdez says, Warren knows that Bernie's the only real shot of getting any of the progressive policies done. If she don't, then again, we see who she really is. Phil Smart says, is there a chance that Warren endorsing Biden has a reverse effect and makes Bernie look like the heroic progressive underdog? Potentially, but even if it has that effect, Sanders needs that suburban white vote that Warren has right now. So Bernie already has the people that care about Medicare for all, Green New Deal, like younger people that are actually informed, engaged on these issues. Sanders has to appeal now to some of the base that he lost from 2016. I was talking about this in a video yesterday. Sanders has lost the white rural voter. I shouldn't say lost, but lost a bit of it to Joe Biden, the white rural voter, and voters over 45 in general. So he had a lot of that support before. Warren has some of that support. So Warren backing him and completely changing the media narrative would definitely help to boost his campaign, were she to do that. Okay. Warren just tweeted out this. Our work continues, the fight goes on, and big dreams never die. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. Let's see what she says here. Okay, I'm not going to read all this. But I imagine if there's big news, we'd be hearing about it already. Okay, let me read some of this. Seems a little long. I think she'll go into some of the issues she cares about, which for the most part we know at this point. But let me just read her initial statements here. So these are remarks from Elizabeth Warren shared in a call with campaign staff. I want to start with the news. I want all of you to hear it first, and I want you to hear it straight from me. Today, I'm suspending our campaign for president. I know how hard all of you have worked, so from the bottom of my heart, thank you for everything you have poured into this campaign. I know that when we set out, this was not what you ever wanted to hear. It is not the call I ever wanted to make, but I refuse to let disappointment blind me, or you, to what we've accomplished. We didn't reach our goal, but what we have done together, what you have done, has made a lasting difference. It's not the scale of the difference we wanted to make, but it matters, and the changes will have ripples for years to come. What we have done and the ideas we have launched into the world, the way we have fought this fight, the relationships we have built, will carry through for the rest of this election, and one after that, and the one after that. So think about it. Okay, and then she goes to talk about her campaign and what her campaign was about. Yeah, okay. I think we get an idea. So I almost wouldn't expect her to make an endorsement today. I think she will. I think she'll kind of go silent for maybe even the next couple days. And like as this news kind of sits and the media reacts to it, reacts to her dropping out, and eagerly awaits what she's going to do. I think at that point, if she's going to make a move, then she'll make a move. If she's going to make a move, she'll make it within the next couple of days, or the next week. But she'll likely sit on this news today, sit on her backing out today, and not do anything else yet. So don't expect that to happen today, but at some point, I think we should expect her to do something. Or at least, even if she's not going to endorse, I think she would say that, hey, I'm not going to endorse. I'm going to support whoever's going to win the nomination. And it doesn't appear she's done that so far. Maybe let me double check this this Medium post, see how she ends it, because she'll talk about her campaign for a while here. So see how she ends it here. Mama leans over them and whispers, "Dream big," and the children together reply, "Fight hard. Our work continues. The fight goes on, and big dreams never die. Thank you from the bottom of my heart." Okay, yeah. So she's not even saying anything about the race. Just leaving it there. And as I said, she will likely sit on this for the next couple of days. And within the next 7 days, I would think, make some kind of announcement. All right, back to some super chats here. Jack Mazka says, new Florida poll has Biden up huge. Yeah, I saw that. It's going to be Bernie's only hope in Florida right now is to cut into Biden's lead. Biden is definitely up big in Florida. I think in the last poll, Bloomberg's still even beating Bernie right now in polling. It's like, I think 12% for Bloomberg, 11% for Bernie Sanders, and Biden's up at like 40% or something crazy. So Florida is not the state that maybe it once was in terms of you needing it in the general. What the Democratic candidate nominee really needs to do is win the Rust Belt and be able to really bring out a large movement of young voters in particular to come out and vote. And Sanders is doing a lot of that in the primary, but it's a lot easier. The turnout for young voters isn't as strong as we would like it to be, because older voters over 45, are just more reliable voters in general. But when it comes to a general election, it's a lot easier. The barrier to entry to vote is a lot lower. So, during the primary process, a lot of states, they're closed states. You got to register beforehand or do all this crap. So a lot of young people just don't vote. They're not involved. They're not engaged. They haven't had the time or the thought to register to get out there and vote. But in a general, it's all over the news all the time, the races, and young people are more likely to come out and vote. But right now, Sanders needs some of that over 45 voter. And he needs to make moves to appeal to those people. Adam Mundock sends a super chat. Thank you. Carlos Colon says, I want to believe that Warren can be redeemed and jump back to the progressive train. Bernie needs her by his side to sway this country to Medicare for all. Yep. Kashrinda says, would things have changed Tuesday if Bernie had made a play for bringing in Yang and Tulsi while Biden consolidated the centrist moderate vote? I got to give you some hard truths for a second. If you've seen anything Andrew Yang has been saying on CNN, he's not the guy that he at least pretended to be for a while. His analysis, Yang's analysis of the race so far, is very cookie cutter, standard, corporate Democrat kind of analysis on the race. It's not good. So I'm not even sure if Yang would back Sanders, even though if many of his supporters would and do right now, I would think. When it comes to Tulsi, she's barely polling in votes in these states. I don't think a Tulsi and Yang endorsement would have really helped to do anything, honestly, because Pete and Klobuchar were still actively in the race. So it's a lot different. Tulsi wasn't even on the debate stage since I think she hasn't been on one since like November. So it wouldn't really have much of an impact. Like, it's also important to get out of our own bubbles, right? Like, we may think, oh, a Tulsi and Yang endorsement would be huge. But in reality, if you get outside your own bubble, they don't have all that much pull. The voters that Sanders actually needs are the over 45 voters and white voters as well, that he lost from 2016. So right now, Biden's competing with him with the older white vote, or I should say, the rural white vote is kind of split between Biden and Sanders. But older whites, just in general, Biden has those, and Bernie has to think of ways to get those people back. I think that the thing with Joe Biden, he fools enough people because he was Biden's VP, or because he was Obama's VP for 8 years. I think Biden fools enough people into thinking, oh, I mean, I know this guy. I know Joe Biden, Obama, same thing. When they're not at all the same thing, especially now the way, Biden's brain, he's just not all there. And the idea, like, that's like, with all the issues we have with Biden's policy and platform and history, possibly his biggest liability is his own brain and his inability to perform well. Like, have you seen Biden in like a long interview ever? Like, he talked to the New York Times and he just completely embarrassed himself during that interview. And Rachel Maddow yesterday asked on air for a one-on-one interview with Joe Biden after she talked to Bernie Sanders for like a half an hour. Is Biden going to talk to Rachel Maddow for a half an hour? I don't think his campaign would allow it. We will see, but like, Biden won states on Super Tuesday that he didn't even visit. He was barely there. They had no offices. I think Minnesota, I think it was, or Maine, one of these states. He wasn't even there. Like Massachusetts, I don't think he was even there. They weren't even campaigning in these states, and he won because of name recognition. These people haven't seen him for like 3 years. So, like in Iowa, Biden's numbers were really good for a while, until he was visiting Iowa over and over and over again to try and win over voters there. All he was doing every time Biden showed up in Iowa was losing support. The Biden campaign strategy right now is to lay low, because the more people see him, the more people realize this guy's not well and we can't vote for him. So, I mean, it really is disgusting what the Biden campaign is doing by hiding him, because they realize that he is not fit for this. Sorry, back to Super Chats. Where was I? Creative Space says they will give Biden yes or no questions or multiple choice at the next debate. That's a funny thought. Biden, do you support, or it could be like, Joe Biden, what do you think about universal health care? Should we have, with people going, with 500,000 people a year going bankrupt due to healthcare costs, why shouldn't we have Medicare for all? Is it A, because your corporate backers don't allow it? B, because you want to continue Obamacare? C, like, I could just see Biden going, B, because I want to continue Obama's legacy, Obamacare. That's what we did. I did that. I'm Obama. Like, all right, Biden, that's enough. Just saying the letter B was enough for us. Now, Bernie Sanders, why do you hate all women? Like, that's essentially what the debates have been so far. Obviously, I'm being hyperbolic here, but the framing of all the questions have just been almost always anti-Sanders, or even when they ask other candidates, like Amy Klobuchar, won't Medicare for all bankrupt the country? Why do you think Medicare for all will bankrupt the country? I know that isn't a direct quote, but there's been questions like that where they basically smear Sanders in the question to other candidates, giving them a layup to, dunk on Bernie Sanders in a in some sort of dishonest way. They've done that over and over again. The Big Red Bear, yes, the Big Red Bear, says her power is only here now. If she wants influence, she'll need to use her endorsement same day. And if the U.S. chooses Biden, they deserve Trump, to be fair. Sorry, I just had to remind myself to refresh Twitter in case any news drops. I just don't want to be missing out here. Richard Mays says Bernie needs to distance himself from the Obama catastrophe. Tell voters he wants to go beyond the Obama hope and change mantra onto real change. Here's the thing. I bet you, Richard, that you already support Bernie Sanders. People that believe what you're saying, and I agree with you, already support him. Bernie now has to appeal to people that don't support him right now. And a lot of those people are over the age of 45. Older voters. He has to find a way to appeal to them. He put an ad out with Barack Obama in it, complimenting Bernie Sanders and, attaching himself to Barack Obama. That is one smart way, one strategic way to try and get after that over 45 vote. But he needs more. And really, he needs more allies. He needs somebody like Elizabeth Warren and even other candidates to come out and back him that, may have appeal to older voters that he doesn't have. Justin Moffitt says, is there data on Bernie's contributions since Tuesday? I saw something saying he raised $5 million in 24 hours from the Super Tuesday results. So I don't have that data in front of me, but maybe if I can find it. I forget the guy's name now. The Sanders person that posted it. But no, yeah, I think it's something like 5 million, 5.2 million from memory. That's what they raised. Stinkenborough says if Bernie doesn't win the nomination, he should threaten to run as independent in exchange for something, and if so, what? You guys are getting crazy. That's not going to happen. If Biden wins the nomination, he'll back Biden. That doesn't mean, this is what Joe Biden and the corporate wing have to understand, and maybe they already understand this. Regardless of what Bernie Sanders does, regardless of what AOC or Bernie Sanders say, if Biden wins the nomination and they back him, regardless of them doing that, that doesn't guarantee that Biden's going to get all their support. A lot of people that voted for Bernie or would have voted for Bernie are going to stay home. And they're not going to come out for Joe Biden. So they have to understand that appeal, the Biden campaign would have to do something to attract those voters. You can't just put it all on Bernie Sanders and AOC to bring over those voters. No, the Biden campaign would have to reach out to voters. Fight for Medicare for all. Every freaking state is voting in support of it in exit polling in this primary. Maybe actually back it, but don't count on that. Don't count on that happening. James Bird says many Republicans voted for Biden in the South. That's not party democracy. That's infiltration. I need to see data on that. And even if that happened, it would be a minuscule amount of people that did that. It wouldn't have much of an impact. The South is just, more conservative in general. You're going to have more conservative Democrats down there, especially if you have mainly older people voting in those states, which it was. They're going to back a candidate that is, a little more safer in their minds, even though in reality he's not safer. Henry Volt says if we have to offer an olive branch to anyone to win this, it might as well and should be her. Yep. Adam Mundock says, can mail-in voting help progressive voter turnout? It helps. I imagine it would help turnout in general. So anything that helps turnout is a good thing to me, regardless of ideology. Ginny McGrath says, how do you feel about people who won't support Bernie because of mean tweets they receive? It's the most pettiest, childist crap I've ever seen. I agree with you, Junie. It is pretty dumb. The idea that, I can't support Medicare for all now because someone that supported Bernie Sanders was mean to me online. That is some seriously privileged bullshit, to put it lightly. EO Santini says Bernie needs to start being the fighter we need him to be. Don't start a conversation. He is my friend. I understand people got to cut down their words, unfortunately, because of Super Chat only gives you a certain amount of characters. But it makes reading some of these really hard because the sentences don't make any sense. But Bernie needs to start being the fighter we need him to be. Don't start a conversation with he is my friend. Give Biden hell. Expose him for the fraud he is. You can expose Biden while being kind. And again, I'm guessing you already support Bernie Sanders. You have to think about the people that don't think like you. A lot of people don't want to see that anger directed at another Democrat on stage. There are ways you can take down Joe Biden. His surrogates can go on television and definitely do what you're saying. Of course, Siri wakes up when I say surrogates. Bernie surrogates can go on television and, rip Biden to shreds. But Bernie isn't that person. Bernie likes Joe Biden as a person. Sure, I would personally like to see Bernie be a little tougher on Joe Biden and do what you are saying. But I don't even necessarily think that would help. Because, again, you're talking about this older 45 voter that is so focused. And I'm saying this by and large. I know there are many over 45 voters that back Bernie Sanders. But looking at the data, we know Biden support is older. And these people prioritize being kind to each other. Like, that's what their focus is. Oh, Congress sucks, not because they're not passing, Medicare for all, but because they're being mean to each other. Like, people think this way. These are incredibly privileged people, but also these are people that are just stuck into the cable news mindset. And that's what bothers them. Decorum. Oh, we need decorum back into politics. Oh, Bernie's being divisive and mean by attacking Joe Biden, saying that actually they're not friends. You know what? Think of it that way. Like, that's how it would be perceived by many people at home. If Bernie were to take that route and give Biden hell the way that you want him to. That isn't to say don't go after him. Of course, go after Biden. Go after his record. Go after what he's voted for. Go after his doublespeak on issues. Even really consider going after his mind, his brain, how he's not fit for office. Like, I think there's an artful way to do that without coming off as someone that could be perceived as the divisive figure that many of the older voters may view that as. Balthazar says, based on what she's said on it, I doubt if Warren ever supported Medicare for all. I wonder if this progressive appearance is all just a facade for her. We will see, won't we? We will see. All right, so I'm going to take as many of these. Excuse me. Sorry, I just saw this tweet. I don't know if this is important. I haven't read it yet. Let me just read this. From Elizabeth Warren's remarks to campaign staff. I used to hate goodbyes whenever I taught my last class or when we moved to a new city. Those final goodbyes used to wrench my heart. But then I realized that there is no goodbye for much of what we do. When I left one place, I took everything I'd learned before and all the good ideas that were tucked into my brain and all the good friends that were tucked into my heart, and I brought it all forward with me, and it became part of what I did next. This campaign is no different. I may not be in the race for president in 2020, but this fight, our fight, is not over, and our place in this fight has not ended. I think it's important to keep in mind that it is very hard to run for president. And look, I know these people, yes, they're here to serve the interests of the people. Yes, I agree with you. That said, just on a human level, as somebody who ran as a Green Party candidate for 3 months, and it's crazy the pressure that I felt running in a small, tiny race that I knew I was going to lose anyways. Doing that puts a lot of pressure on you. I can't even imagine the pressure that people running for president feel, especially if you actually really care about these issues and you care about the people around you and, you want these ideas put forward and you really want to win because you feel like you have the best way, even if you might not have the best, strategy or way to get it passed, but you feel that you do. It is hard to run for president, and these are human beings. Even though we have our issues with them and what they do and what they say, and they're not perfect. I think it's important to keep in mind that it's hard to run for president, and all I can hope at this point is that Elizabeth Warren actually does care about these issues, and she is willing to fight for them in the way that I think is the most rational way to fight for them, and that's by backing the one candidate that actually is going to fight for them and has fought for them their entire career. Let me get some more of these super chats. So, as I was saying, since I don't expect there to be any big announcement today about what she's doing, I'm going to finish up these super chats, so get them in now, and then get off this. So, let's see what else is popping up here. Wow, there's a lot of support coming in. Much appreciated here. I just forget where I left off. Michael Manos says, "Why do you think Bernie has struggled to expand his base / has lost support since last cycle?" It's a good question. I think there definitely is at least a small percentage of the Bernie vote in 2016 that was an anti-Hillary vote. And with so many choices this time and no single evil person in the race necessarily, even though I would say Joe Biden is and Bloomberg is. But Hillary was like a different kind of figure. And I think a lot of the Democratic base was really unhappy that they were just being given her and didn't really have a choice. So I think for a lot of people, potentially Bernie was a protest vote. And this time, the newness factor has kind of worn off. And because they have more choices, when we're looking at white rural voters, and also, look, his campaign, it isn't just, it isn't just people losing, or it isn't just people not supporting him because of, he's not new anymore. It's because the campaign also likely hasn't reached out to them in the same way that maybe they did in 2016. So the Sanders campaign has done, I think, the correct job of building a more diverse coalition, a multiracial, in some cases, a multi-generational coalition. But they definitely have sort of lost some of that white support. And I don't even really know the answer to that. And potentially a lot of that white support was lost because a lot of white people are racist. And they now see a multiracial coalition supporting Sanders and think, you know what? I don't want to be with that multiracial coalition. I want to back somebody else. So you also have to factor that in as well. It's possible some of these people just didn't feel at home because they felt the campaign changed. And when it comes to those people, we don't need them. You don't need those people. But you do need, white liberals at least, that like the Warren supporters that you can absolutely get that she has if she were to back him. Waleed Isa says, "I sell cars. Aside from phone banks, knocking doors, canvassing, making announcements to my mosque to vote for Bernie, I drove customers to the polls to vote for Bernie here in North Carolina." Awesome. Almost cried Tuesday. Well, that's sad. But no, that's good. Good work. Like, even if it doesn't pay off, understand you did more. And you definitely added to Sanders' support in that state. And every little bit helps. So that's really cool to see, Waleed. I'm glad you did that. More people should do what you did. Al Brown says, "Bernie lost the African-American vote. He has to do something major to bring them along." He lost older black voters. Younger black voters are with Bernie. And when we were looking at polling, Bernie began to overtake Joe Biden when it came to the African-American vote nationwide. So I agree with you. He should still, obviously try to appeal to them. But it's the older voter in general that he has to appeal to. Like that's the issue here. It isn't just a racial thing. It's older voters. Adam says, "I know you down too. Just make sure that your realism isn't pessimism in disguise. Keep up the awesome work." Mr. Izzy Dizzy says, share the video in 2007 of Biden supporting Medicare for all. It's not readily in front of me, so I'm not going to do that. Also, like, I'm mixed on that video because in some ways you could almost fool people into supporting Joe Biden with a video like that. Be like, look, Joe Biden also supports Medicare for all, so why even bother voting for Bernie Sanders? When in reality, we know Biden's not going to fight for it. So really all you're showcasing is Biden's hypocrisy on the issue. But that isn't a video I would share to people that may be on the fence, because you may just push them over to Joe Biden at that point. Cutthroat Juggalo says, every other sentence from Bernie should be Joe Biden spent a career trying to cut Social Security. Yeah, he's definitely got to get back to that attack line. It was working before Iowa, and Biden did horribly in the first 3 states. But then they stopped attacking him because Biden didn't appear like a threat. And now they got to get back on those attacks. Ascended said, David, someone should ask Biden why he keeps telling black voters he marched in the civil rights movement when he's on YouTube admitting he didn't. Yes, that and his lies about getting arrested in South Africa trying to meet Nelson Mandela. Like, the amount of lies Joe Biden tells on the campaign trail and just the complete lack of media coverage on it, it shows you the media bias so clearly. Can you imagine if Bernie Sanders lied, a verifiable lie about his about marching for civil rights, or about getting arrested trying to meet Nelson Mandela? Imagine the news cycle if Bernie Sanders said, I got arrested trying to meet Nelson Mandela and it never happened. We would still be talking about it. Like if it happened 3 weeks ago, we would still be happened 4 months ago, we would still be talking about it. Or I wouldn't be talking about it, but the media would be talking about it. And to be honest, it would be a horrible lie. Like, it isn't the kind of thing that Bernie would ever do. But the point being that the media treats these two candidates very differently. They treat Joe Biden like, oh, of course he's lying. Of course he's blowing things up that never actually happened. But Bernie, because he's so honest all the time, if there's one little misstep, like like Joy Reid on MSNBC was going after Bernie Sanders over the ad he has with Barack Obama, when every other candidate was doing the same thing. Yet Bernie, because he's so consistently honest, he does one thing that may be perceived as dishonest. Oh, it's a huge deal. Like, there's a total double standard. And it's all based on, like, so much of news is based on expectations. If you expect someone to be a total idiot, then it's not big news when they're a total idiot. But if you expect somebody to be consistent and honest and authentic, then there's one little thing that you can go after them on, then it becomes a huge deal. Like, it's really disgusting how the news operates that way, because that is not reality. People should be judged based on the totality of what they've done and what they say. Gary Mitchell says, how can we get Bernie to stop complimenting Biden? I don't think he's complimenting Biden. Saying somebody's your friend is not a compliment. I mean, I have friends that I can say, hey, this person's my friend, but they're wrong on this, this, and this. Like, it's saying someone's your friend is not a compliment. Ricky Williams says, when people say the private sector can do anything better and more efficiently, ask them how that is working out on the cost of higher education. And really, I mean, how's that working out in healthcare? To me, that's the more obvious one in America, when there are CEOs and executives in the healthcare industry making millions and millions of dollars off of sick people, when there are 45,000 people a year, Americans a year, dying due to a lack of access to healthcare, and 500,000 people going bankrupt due to healthcare costs. Like, it shows you the private sector cannot do everything and should not do everything. Richard Vander Woerd says, especially older people need universal health care. Yeah, I mean, especially when it comes to home care. I think Bernie should focus on that a little more, that home care is covered under his Medicare for All plan. But a lot of older people also already have Medicare. So, but that's why Bernie has to focus on how the expansion of Medicare under Medicare for All, which would include home care for the elderly. That's how you can reach a lot of those older voters. Nick says, it will be hard, but his campaign survived a freaking heart attack. It's not over. Good point. Baldassar says, do you think if Medicare for All gets passed in the U.S., will it push Canada to roll out the rest of the stages of their single-payer systems? Hashtag milk and bags. Yeah, I do. If Medicare for All gets passed in the U.S., then there will be real discussions here about universal pharmacare and about universal dental care, which are not covered under our system. Tyrell Falad says, isn't Bernie even or higher in delegates once Colorado, Utah, and California are done reporting? With his margin in those states, he should gain, I think. They're going to be really close. I haven't checked recently, but I think Biden will still be in the lead, but it's going to be very close. So, not clear. Not clear who will really be the one on top at that point. But I do think Biden will come out on top after Super Tuesday. But this is why the race is a reset. Like, the media is going to try and tell you, oh, it's over, it's Joe Biden. No, it's nowhere near over. Bernie was in a deeper hole against Hillary Clinton at this point, and he almost he was so close to beating her. So no, it's not over. PM says Biden can win all red states in primary, will not help him defeat Trump in the general. You need a base in the Rust Belt and Southwest. Yep. Same thing with Hillary Clinton. Josephine says Warren gets a lot of money from Big Pharma. She's not for Medicare for All. I want to know what your source is on that. We don't know who is giving to her super PAC. That may not be good information when that gets released. But no, like her actual campaign, the Warren campaign, was grassroots funded. As long as you don't count, I think she took in like $10 million from her Senate race into her 2020 campaign. But apart from the super PAC that backed her late in this race, she wasn't taking money from Big Pharma. David Adams says CNN attacked Bernie for the Obama ad, but didn't mention Bloomberg and Warren's similar ad. Yeah, of course they didn't. I was talking about that earlier. You likely read my mind. Matthew Wagner says, if Biden wants a chance for my vote, he needs to now announce his VP. Bernie should too. Let's hope Biden doesn't have a chance at your vote. Oh, you mean in the general, if he wins it? Okay. No. Here's why. If Bernie announces his VP now, Biden will come back and announce his. And in that case, you get the Biden campaign able to react to the Sanders campaign. And I just don't. It almost looks weak if you announce a VP, like the way Ted Cruz did it when he was facing Donald Trump. It's like a last-ditch attempt at getting support. Now, if Elizabeth Warren's endorsement hinges on her being Bernie's VP, then maybe you will see it. But apart from that, I don't think he'll do that unless it comes down to the wire and he's really got to pull out all the stops. Then maybe he'll, take a risk and do that. But I don't really know if it would work out because I could just see Biden coming back and getting, I don't know, Kamala Harris as vice president and then just completely change the news cycle. You know how much cable news loves Kamala Harris. So I don't really know. Boris Garcia says next debate will go like Biden. How are you doing today? Wait, what? There's not even sentences or periods here. Next debate will go like Biden. How are you doing today? Bernie, how will you pay for it? Oh, okay. When there's no grammar, I'm just completely lost in this sentence. Next debate will go like Biden. How are you doing today? Bernie, how will you pay for it? Thank you. That all the time we have today. I get what you're saying now. Just had to read it over a few times. A lot of support coming in. All right. As I said, I will get through these super chats, and if they end at some point, and then got to get off here and do other videos. Lisa Cisneros. Are you related to Jessica Cisneros? Says, just concentrate on young people to show up. They're already on his side. you can do both. You can focus on young people. Yes, of course. Still need young people to get out and vote for sure. But you can do that while still trying to appeal to older voters. I think the assumption before was that Bernie would be able to get out enough younger people during the primary process that it wouldn't matter if old people supported him or not. But clearly, it is really hard to get young people out to vote during a primary. In a general, it'll be a lot easier for Bernie to do it because it's a lot easier to vote in a general. In a primary, there are often restrictions, and it's much tougher. Ricky Williams says Bernie needs to say the U.S. helps subsidize the lower healthcare costs in other countries. Companies can make up profits here since we don't negotiate. I'm just going to have to read through some of these now quickly because I need to get back to work. Justin Moffat says, we love you, you crazy Canuck. Thanks for all you do. Thank you. Zawirldo says, honestly, Bernie is attracting mostly younger voters and kind of neglecting older/senior votes. He may need to lower the age of retirement to 50. I'm not going to, okay, yeah. Too much thought for me. I need to go through these quick. Christian Veneman says, so many Warren supporters have flocked to Bernie after she announced. It's almost like she should have announced before Super Tuesday. Yeah. Yes, she should have. She should have not been a she should have dropped out before Super Tuesday and backed him. Like, her doing it now is sort of a last ditch attempt, but it really should have happened earlier. It was clear she had no path to the nomination since losing the first 3 states. Like, it was obvious. But why am I responding? I'm supposed to read quickly. Jessica K says, go check out Washington Post. Warren is live right now. Oh, is she? Let me check this. Is she live as in is she speaking? I don't know, I'm not seeing anything. Now this has a stream, but it's black. All right. It's possible I read that late because I don't see anything happening. But I will refresh my Twitter just to double check. All right, this may be new. Let's check this out.
In the bales. Okay. All right. So I announced this morning that I am suspending my campaign for president. I say this with a deep sense of gratitude for every single person who got in this fight, every single person who tried on a new idea, every single person who just moved a little in their notion of what a president of the United States should look like. I will not be running for president in 2020, but I guarantee I will stay in the fight for the hardworking folks across this country who've gotten the short end of the stick over and over. That's been the fight of my life, and it will continue to be so.
Senator Warren, what guidance would you give to your supporters who don't know who to support now?
Well, let's take a deep breath and spend a little time on that. We don't have to decide that this minute.
And I wonder what your message would be to the women and girls who feel like we're left with 2 white men to decide between.
I know. One of the hardest parts of this is all those big promises and all those little girls who are going to have to wait 4 more years. That's going to be hard.
Senator Warren,
how about,
will you be making
4 more years? Let's hope 8 more years. If you say 4 more years, then you're assuming something's happening in 4 years. Like you're backing a Republican in 4 years. But I get what she's saying here. Yeah, she's not going to make an announcement yet, like an endorsement yet.
An endorsement today. We know that you spoke with both Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders yesterday.
Not today.
Not today.
I need some space around this, and want to take a little time to think a little more. I've been spending a lot of time right now on the question of suspending and also making sure that this works as best we can for our staff, for our team, for our volunteers.
So it could be coming, but just not right now.
Not right now.
And I know that your campaign manager, Roger Lau, said on the staff call today that he had no regrets. Do you feel the same way?
Oh, I do. I have no regrets at all. You know, this has been the honor of a lifetime. 10 years ago, I was teaching a few blocks from here and talking about what was broken in America and ideas for how to fix it. And pretty much nobody wanted to hear it. And I've had a chance to get out there and talk with millions of people. And, you know, we have ideas now that we talk about that we just weren't talking about even a year ago. A 2-cent wealth tax and universal child care that could be real. We could make it happen. And canceling student loan debt for 43 million Americans and raising Social Security payments. Those are life-changing events for people. And we can actually do this.
All right. Get back to these super chats. Noah Smith says, I'm part of a group to subconsciously influence. Subconsciously influence? The Somali pirate says, LMAO, bring up how during the Obama era, after 8 million people lost their homes, the government went out and sold thousands of foreclosed homes in bundles to private equity firms for pennies on the dollars. Yeah. I mean, that is something that, like, it's hard to pin that on just Biden, but you could definitely bring up, like, just the general fact that the Democratic Party, by and large, at least the leadership, has been working in the best interests of massive companies, of big banks, and not in the interest of people. Noah Smith says voters' minds. Oh, I think you're continuing your sentence. I'm part of a group to subconsciously influence voters' minds. Need your advice. Please hit me up. I don't know what that means. Michael Goldman says, will PCCC and Working Families Party rally for Bernie now? We will have to see. They may wait for Warren to endorse to make a move. Josephine says Warren's daughter works for Big Pharma. That is, last I checked, that's true. But I don't know. There was a time when Warren said, I'm with Bernie on Medicare for all. She can go back to that. And the only thing that changed her mind, that appeared to change her mind, was her being questioned on how she's going to pay for Medicare for all. And then she had to devise a new plan with a public option. Vigo says, I'm moving to Canada if Bernie is not the nominee. David, do you have a spare bedroom? I do not. Sorry. Apologies. All right. Almost done here. Levo says, will Warren drop out to help Bernie? I talked the entire stream about that. go back and rewatch the whole stream. Daryl Bryce says, we've underestimated the fear of another Trump term on older voters, forcing them to seek a candidate that will bring a sense of normalcy back. Yeah, I agree with that. I talked about that. I think I talked about that yesterday. That Donald Trump has lowered the bar. Donald Trump has lowered the bar for many Democratic voters. So there is this, some people speculated, if Trump's president, then it's going to turn the Democratic Party to realize, we got to go the Bernie direction. No, what ended up happening for a lot of voters is that, I just want something normal. And that's why a lot of them are perfectly content with Joe Biden. Now, if the Republicans had, say, Ted Cruz or Marco Rubio, you wouldn't be seeing Joe Biden right now. You'd be seeing somebody else. But because it's Trump, that's why Joe Biden's in this race. And it's enough for a lot of people, unfortunately. And many of those people, clearly, their lives must largely be okay. They must have health care. They must be able to afford housing. They must make a nice wage. They must not have student debt. Otherwise, they'd be supporting a candidate that actually is going to fight for their interest. Ravi says, your videos are great, you magnificent beast. Thank you. I think I missed one. Batty says, how can Elizabeth support Bernie after she said he doesn't think a woman can win? She can't endorse him for that reason or even accept a VP spot. She knows that wasn't true. And she'll I mean, you can find reasons. She's gone after Joe Biden on serious issues. Less so recently, but she has gone after Joe Biden on serious issues. And clearly, her platform is a lot different than Biden's is. I am losing my voice right now. Let's hope it's not the coronavirus. But regardless of who she backs, right, she has to make some kind of concessions. So I think it makes more sense to back the candidate that actually is aligned with you on issues, if she actually cares about these issues. Ravi says your videos are... Oh, I read this already. Balthazar says, I wonder if Julius Caesar was saying, despite the knife in my back, Brutus is my friend, although we do disagree on many different issues. It's not really a direct comparison. Shelby Hall says she arrived at D.C. rallying against Biden, and now she thinks now she needs to think about endorsing him. Does anyone believe Bernie wouldn't endorse her if the shoe was on the other foot? I think the wait is strategic because she doesn't have to back right now. In fact, you can make the argument that strategically, if she's going to back Bernie Sanders, waiting till the weekend to do it might have more of an impact because there's voting, I believe next Tuesday. So doing it almost in the same way that Klobuchar and Buttigieg did for Biden, doing it where there's like a couple days and it becomes the news cycle that, oh my God, Bernie has this support now. And it's really in the forefront of people's minds. There is an argument to be made that her waiting would actually be beneficial, assuming that endorsement even comes. Liana Thomas says, please look into discrepancies between exit polling in some Super Tuesday states and South Carolina and the final counts. Ben Norton tweeted about this. I saw something about that when it came to Massachusetts. Maybe South Carolina as well. But yeah, it is weird. Totally. It's weird. It's weird to see in exit polling that Bernie was winning in Massachusetts and then Biden wins. That said, I think Biden was still I think it was Bernie, Biden, Warren in the exit polling. So it was still showing Warren doing really poorly. So it isn't completely off, but exit polling was definitely off. Michael Manos says, for nearly every single vote Joe Biden has made in his career, there is a video of Bernie Sanders making the exact opposite and correct vote. Yep. In fact, I did comparisons almost a year ago now, maybe a year ago, comparing Biden to Bernie and their different records. To have to bring all that stuff back up, maybe I could just repost my old videos. You guys could just watch it again. Because I just feel like I've talked about this stuff forever that it's annoying to have to rehash the same arguments again. But it may have to be done. H.H. Madsen says, to be honest, Trump will win again, but see it from my side. He will leave NATO. That means that us Danes won't join more of U.S. stupid wars. I don't think it's... I don't know. Again, I shouldn't be commenting because I got to get back to work. But Trump might win again. He might not. We got to see. Anurag says, your Super Tuesday frustration on Twitch, I felt that. That was a disaster for leftists. Yeah. If you want to see me go nuts, consider watching me on Twitch when I go live. I'm a little more looser on Twitch. I will say I deleted that video on demand afterwards because I disagree with a lot of what I said. When you're riding high on emotion, sometimes you say things that you don't agree with. So, but if you were there live, then you caught it all. Okay, I think I'm done here. All right, fantastic. All right, thank you all for joining. This will be 3 streaming days in a row because I streamed yesterday as well. I streamed this news and I'll stream tomorrow on my usual Friday live stream. So come back tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern on this channel. I'll have my usual Friday live stream where there's more of this. But thanks for joining. And sorry, I just saw more come in. I don't want to miss anyone's super chat. If I miss your super chat, I'm sorry. This stream is about a minute behind, or your stream's a minute behind reality. so I may miss your chat if it comes in late. Apologies ahead of time. But thank you again. One last refresh to make sure I'm not missing anything. Oh, okay, 2 more came in. These are the last 2 I'm reading, then I got to get off. The Proletariat says, what are your thoughts on the mainstream media attempts to redefine establishment from neoliberal to the democratic electorate? Yeah, I've noticed that. The mainstream media now is trying to say, oh, don't attack the establishment because the establishment is are black voters. No, the establishment is democratic leadership, is corporate interests. Like, that's not, but yeah, what they are trying to do is, again, hurt the Sanders message, trying to muddy the waters about what the Democratic establishment actually is. And it's disgusting, but they do it all the time. Anna Hart says, my friend in North Carolina had her provisional ballot for Bernie tossed out. She triple checked it. Same with her husband. Wow. Some of this stuff you can't control for, which is why you have to overwhelm the vote and really make sure that all the votes that can be in for Bernie are in for Bernie. All right. Got to go. Thank you all for joining me, and see you tomorrow.